Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to Fireside Chat number 57. We'll be continuing our discussions with the Liberty Bells, although, to be specific, this is just the Liberty Bell for now. We have Natty. Hi, Natty.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm all alone.
Yes, you are. For now. Elizabeth will be joining us soon. The others, unfortunately, could not make it, but that's okay. We can make this work anyway. So
yes, we can.
Yes. So last time we had you guys on, I basically tried to find out more about who you were and why you were doing the things that you were doing. Why you decided to make the group Liberty Bells and Ladies for Philip Davies, what that entailed, and all that. However, what we didn't get a chance to go into was a couple of other things. Specifically, one thing I wanted to ask you about, and I thought there may have been some interesting things you took away from this, was your actual interview with Philip Davies. First of all, how did you score that? How did you get him to sit down and talk to you guys?
Okay, so I came to ICMI in London and I saw you there. And Philip was also there as well. And remember I brought my baby? Mm-hmm. Made me, like, if anyone sort of spoke to me, oh, you're the chick with the baby. I said hello to him. And I was like, hi, it's great to meet you. I really like what you said. And then he kind of left. And so when we came up with this idea, I was like, well, I met him at the conference. Maybe he'll remember me. And so I sent him an email, a nice email where I obviously pitched the idea to him. And he was like, oh, you're the chick with the baby. I was like, yeah. So, my baby really helped, I think.
Did he actually say chick with the baby?
He was probably a lot more full than I am. I'm just paraphrasing, really.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure because, some people might say that's misogyny. You're the chick with the baby.
Oh. Yeah, well, he gets called a misogynist all the time. So,
yeah.
If he does say something like that, then unfortunately, I don't really care if anyone calls me a chick with a baby. Like, it's fine.
It's an accurate description, though. I mean, you are a chick and you have a baby. So
exactly,
yeah.
And also, I always thought when a guy calls a woman a chick, like it's an American thing generally, when they go, "Oh yeah, that chick over there," she's usually young.
That's true.
I'm quite happy to be referred to as young. I'm like 30, so I'm.
Oh yeah, that sounds.
It's fine with me.
That
Call me a
sounds
girl
ancient.
anytime.
Yeah, that 30 years old. That's a fossil. I understand. That's so old.
Totally.
And you know what? Actually,
totally.
I know this is like not at all related, but I just had this thought. In America, or we call women chicks. It's like guys do that. Hey, the chick over there. In the UK, they call them birds, and chicks are birds. Huh.
That's true.
Interesting.
That's true.
Yeah. So Philip Davies should have probably said the bird with the baby, or the okay. Yes.
If he was being, if he was being a little bit more kind of like laddish, that bird over there, I can't imagine that Philip Davies would ever speak in that kind of local tongue. He's from Shipley, which is up north, which is kind of like
Liverpool.
It's in West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire. Oh God, I'm a Londoner, so I'm going to get this wrong. But it's kind of like the Rust Belt in America. Yeah, it's northern industrial working class towns. So he has that kind of accent, but it's obviously he's a politician and he's done very well. So he's very clear and speaks the Queen's English and doesn't particularly use slang. But maybe he does after he's had a few pints. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he seems like a pretty down-to-earth politician, though. He didn't try to grab and kiss your baby, which is what politicians do. I understand it's just the way that they sort of signal their, what they do as their job, so people know that's a politician. How do you know he's kissing my baby? And I don't know him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because like I've had a few people on Twitter on the Ladies of Philip Davies account saying he's a self-serving politician. Now, there's many ways you can interpret that, but out of all the politicians I've ever really like seen or spoken to or been aware of, he's one of the most unself-serving ones I can think of. When we were interviewing him, the most consistent message that he was giving was that he wants to listen to his constituents and that he does what his constituents want, and that is the job of an MP.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, to call him self-serving, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's not a Clinton, for God's sake. They're self-serving.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. I see what you're saying. I'm just making sure that the CIA understands that when she says Clinton, she is from another country. She may not know what she's talking about. Please don't kill us. It's rare to see a politician that actually does want to use the system to do some good. And I know that it would seem, people might think, well, why would you believe that Philip Davies is any different from any other? And I think the only thing I can say is he wants to do something about men's issues. And I'm sorry, but that's the least popular platform you could possibly run on to try to get yourself elected. So if you're using that, you know, that's not going to get you very far. I mean, look at Mike Buchanan, who I think also is trying to, you know, do some, you know, get some things done. And he's also focused on the issues facing boys and men. It's, you know, if they really wanted to just go after the ring of power, as it were, they would just become feminists. They would just toe the party line. They would, you know, do whatever they thought was going to get the most votes. This is not that thing. Let me ask Elizabeth, since she's here now, what were some key things that you took away from the Philip Davies interview? Because that's something we didn't get a chance to talk about last time.
Well, I was pleasantly surprised at how critical he was of feminism, actually. I was, you know, I thought he might be a little bit more full with his words, but he was quite critical, which was excellent, and he has been in his Heat Street column as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, the thing about the interview was we were aware that there were a lot of people who would not know Philip necessarily, you know, people in the States and in the rest of the world. So we kept it quite simple. But we've got like pages and pages of questions that we wanted to ask him and that hopefully we'll get a chance to ask him, and we'll get into it all a little bit deeper in the future.
Yes.
Okay. And out of curiosity, how... I know you said that the Conservative Party there is the most popular party, but I wonder, how feminist do you think the UK is in terms of the culture itself? Because if I were to just like say, oh, I want to get an idea of what the views of British people is, let me watch some BBC, because usually, you know, people would assume that you know, what's on their televisions reflects their beliefs. But if you turn on the BBC, it's just feminist all day. So I'm wondering, wait, I don't know that that's how the people feel. Do you have an idea? What do you think it is? Have they done any polls or anything? For example, in the U.S., I want to say it's like less than 20% of people that actually identify as feminists. Even though if you watch our television and our film, you would swear it's 100% of the population. So...
Well, we might be a little bit healthier than you, actually, because the Fawcett Society, who is a feminist organisation, did a poll, and they found that only 7% of people in the UK identified as feminist.
Whoa.
So my feeling is that we have a healthy, if silent at the moment, majority. But, you know, I think that through the work Philip's doing and through the work we're doing and you're doing as well, it's not going to be silent for much longer, and we're going to start to become a bit of a political force to be reckoned with, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're fully convinced that there is a silent majority who are sick and tired of women who've been sick and tired of being told they're victims, sick and tired of being told that their men are oppressing them, or or going beyond that masculinity is bad. You know, all the general messages and points that they keep promoting to us relentlessly. Even though I think that the 7% is quite accurate in terms of people identifying as a pure feminist.
Yeah.
I don't know, attitudes in terms of how men should treat women and how women should treat men. If you were going to remove the label feminist, I would say we're very gynocentric, which is kind of normal in the West, as you know, it's standard. But I still think that the level of common sense is still quite high. So it's probably higher than, say, like, you know, the coastal cities in America and all the, you know, all the metropolitan areas that are very Democrat. And I would say it's still relatively stronger than places like Sweden and Germany and Northern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think we're probably more skeptical and are willing to use the kind of common sense attitude that Philip Davies tends to have.
The leader of the Women's Equality Party, Sophie Walker, announced she will go head-to-head with sexist MP Philip Davies in the forthcoming election. Here's why we're right behind her. All right, so should I just jump ahead to the numbers, or do you want me to read the little intro bit, too?
I think the intro is quite special. Yeah, go ahead with the intro.
Okay, we'll go with the intro. You might recognize Philip Davies, MP for Shipley in Yorkshire, from headlines like this: anti-feminist Tory elected to Women and Equalities Committee. Tory MP tries and fails to block domestic violence bill. Is Philip Davies, reads another, fit to be an MP? The MP, known primarily for his misogynistic and uncaring attitudes, demands a lot of attention from the press. But today, a different kind of headline emerged. Now, before I continue, let's look at, without clicking on it, but maybe you already know, what these articles that the pool is trying to cite actually say, or what the actual truth is about them. Because if most people are relatively lazy, and they'll just read the headline and they'll just go with that, right? So, anti-feminist Tory elected to Women and Equalities Committee. So what is the story behind that? Do you know?
Yeah, so basically, when was it now? I think it was about October last year, or possibly a little bit later in the year. I think there was no one else that wanted the job, but he was appointed to the Women and Equalities Committee, and the feminists just lost their nuts completely. And, you know, they were saying this has to be a joke, and, you know...
Yeah, because he's anti-feminist. So is he like outspoken anti-feminist, or did they just label him that?
He doesn't use the label anti-feminist, but he's called anti-feminist an awful lot. And, you know, he does say things like, I would be a feminist if it meant gender equality, but we can all see it isn't that.
Right. And
so,
what about the men? Things like that. The terrible, terrible, terrible questions you shouldn't ask. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another title is Tory MP tries and fails to block domestic violence bill. Well, that sounds really bad. But what's the truth behind that?
So that was the Istanbul Convention, and it was, you know, all about violence against women, not all men who are suffering from domestic violence. And it also wrote patriarchy theory into our legislation, or it will do. It's not actually received royal assent yet, or it was before Parliament was dissolved. And it also mentions education, so presumably my sons are going to be subjected to listening to patriarchy theory as if it's fact in their secondary schools or their colleges.
Right, so he basically...
As if they didn't have enough of that already.
So they took issue with the fact that he was basically saying this is not a women's issue, this domestic violence thing. And how did they conclude that he was trying to block it? Is it because they were trying to write patriarchy theory into law?
Well, no, he did oppose it, and he spoke for like 77 minutes against it. So he was trying to block it, but he should have been, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, technically they were accusing him of filibustering.
Right.
And we don't really do that in the UK, and I think in America you can get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah, in the States you can stand there and like read a phone book for however long to stop things getting discussed, but in the UK it's very strict. You have to speak on the subject without repeating yourself, or you get told by the speaker to shut up and sit down.
Number 1 on the list. Just this morning, he said that men are a vulnerable minority because they are less likely to suffer a domestic violence.
Okay, so let's hear his actual quote. He actually said that 2/3 of domestic violence, two-thirds of victims of domestic violence are women and 1/3 are men, according to the Office of National Statistics. The whole equality and diversity agenda, I always thought, was about making sure that minorities are protected just as much as the majority. So he was saying that the men who are victims of domestic violence are a minority in victims of domestic violence, and that they should, that they're neglected, but they should still be cared for, basically.
Oh, so there you go. So you have the context. Now it makes a lot of sense. Here I believe that the numbers in the States that Cassie J put in her documentary were that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 3 men would be the victims of domestic violence in their lifetime. And of course,
the latest stat from Mankind over here is 40% of male victims of domestic violence are 40%.
Wow, that's high.
Yeah, the Office of National Statistics, that's going to be victims who have prosecuted their abusers, surely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's slightly lower than maybe the actual victims of domestic violence are.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would contest and say that the figure is more likely to be 50-50, and there's evidence to suggest that. However, the evidence that from the Mankind Initiative and from the National Statistics are the best sources we have in the UK. So until we have kind of another source to quote that in the UK, especially, we have to sort of go with that.
Number 2. In December, he filibustered for 77 minutes in an attempt to block a bill to protect victims of domestic violence. The Istanbul Convention went through, but not until after Davies had likened proponents of the bill, those seeking to help end domestic violence, which kills 2 women per week in the UK, to morons on Twitter. He said the bill was sexist against men, which is an oxymoron. Apparently you can't do that, because it did not explicitly say men in the title. It did provide for men too.
Yeah, that is they keep saying that, and it's just not true. If you read it, it is absolutely all about women, and the only time it mentions men is to say, they use domestic violence in order to continue their historical oppression of women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, as we know, filibustering is not really a thing that happens. So this is
no, that really winds me up when they say that.
Was it just an argument where he was just arguing about the actual issue for 77 minutes? Is that why it's being called a filibuster?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he spent a lot of time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and these are issues that take time to discuss. I mean, I don't know why.
Well, yeah, I mean, because nobody knows the facts, and he's the only person who's going to stand there and give them the facts.
Yeah, exactly.
So he took 77 minutes and tried to do that.
Number 3, Davies announced that he thought the word women should be removed from the Women and Equalities Committee, of which he was elected to. Okay.
Which, of course, it should, and that indeed is why we got our campaign group together, because we thought that we would like to, and we wrote letters to all 650 MPs or emails asking them to support him, and asked our friends to do the same, because a lot of them won't correspond with you unless you're a constituent of theirs. But we've put the petition, we're going to set up a petition, but we've put that on hold since Parliament was dissolved on the 3rd, and all the petitions went dead from that point. So when they're all back in session, we'll be putting up that petition and campaigning for that.
Number 4, he filibustered for 93 minutes to derail a bill which would give carers of sick people free hospital parking. Okay, what's the issue with that? Of course, we already know that filibustering is not a thing in the UK, but
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's funny. It's funny because they accuse him of filibustering multiple times in this article. So
his position on this is that the bill only applied to people with an underlying entitlement to carers allowance. That's only 1 in 6 carers. Hospitals made clear that to pay for this, other customers would have to pay more, which means that 5 out of 6 carers would have had to pay extra for hospital parking if the bill had become law. And in addition to this, a lot of carers actually have and disabled badges entitle them to free parking in hospitals. So it was just a bad bill.
Number 5, in 2015, he filibustered for 52 minutes in order to prevent a bill going through which would provide school children with compulsory first aid training. Well, that doesn't sound so bad.
So, yeah, no, and I asked him about it, and he said that he'd been into schools and that the teachers had objected to it being compulsory. Basically wants the teachers to be in charge of the education, and he also said that he wants to encourage people to join Scouts and Cadets and Brownies and do the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, where they'll learn these kind of skills anyway.
Number 6, he pulled the same trick of filibustering to stop a bill which would ban wild animals being used in circuses, attempted to stop one with which enshrines the UK government's international aid budget into law.
Shall we stop?
Okay,
Shall we
I'll stop
here?
Yeah, we can stop.
Let's start with the circuses. This is an interesting one, because there's never been a debate on wild animals in circuses. They've completely lied.
So this never even happened?
Lies.
It's never happened.
Okay, I'm going to click on the link here and see. Number 7, Davies famously called for the scrapping of the minimum wage, which would essentially allow for exploitation of workers, and suggested in 2011 that disabled people should be allowed to work for below minimum wage.
Yeah, and, you know, this is serious libertarian politics, isn't it?
Yep.
And, you know, personally, I agree with him, you know, especially as far as disabled workers are concerned, because if they can't provide a service that is worth minimum wage, they're locked out of the job market. And, you know, there are lots of reasons to get a job that aren't necessarily the money. Like, it might just give you a sense of purpose, or it might be a first step on the ladder.
Yeah, first step on the ladder where they could develop their skills and their experience, and then they will get to that point.
During his 11 years as an MP, Davies has also attracted attention by writing to the Equality and Human Rights Commission asking why is it offensive to black up, calling for an International Men's Day debate, and blocking a bill with a 90-minute filibuster. So this is just another article accusing him of being a terrible, terrible person, but it doesn't actually address what the hell he means by blacking it up. I'm just having a laugh, but this is the U.S. I think here that means something different than what it means there. So
no. If it is, this is what I'm saying. I want Elizabeth to go back quickly, but if it is about blacking up in terms of dressing up as a black person.
Oh, so blackface.
Blackface. There you go.
Okay.
You call it blackface.
Yes. I see.
I think that's what he's talking about. He said in the interview with us he likes to champion unfashionable causes. So this is, you know, it's quite funny I think.
I think it's hilarious.
He's got a sense of humor with this one.
Yeah, it seems like he's just asking a question, though. That doesn't necessarily mean
it's a valid question. No, it's a valid question. Why on earth is it offensive? It's not. And if you want to dress up and there's anything, if we're going to go into the whole cultural appropriation argument, or if a white person does it, it means they're racist. Are they doing it because they want to be like a gollywog, or are they doing it because, they just really like Bob Marley and want to dress him up as him at Halloween? I mean, it's all within the context of the nuance of the situation.
Yeah.
I think he's referring to that.
Number 9.
Yeah.
He has voted for scrapping the Human Rights Act and to bring back the death penalty. He voted against same-sex marriage, against the Equality Act. All right, Elizabeth.
So, the Human Rights Act is an act that's come from the EU, and it prevents us deporting foreign criminals and terrorists. So against the act.
Yeah. Don't see a problem there. Although again, people are lazy, and if you just read the Human Rights Act, you think, oh my God, he's against human rights. He's just against them in general. This is why it's important to question journalism. Number 10, he wrote in a recent blog that LGBT groups, for clarity, he is a straight white cisgender male. Just so you know how wrong he is for saying this. He wrote that LGBT groups should stop their obsession with letters. Obsession with letters. I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
Yeah, that was just about all the nonsense. There's like another letter every day.
So basically,
and it's just getting absurd.
Yeah, LGBTQAA plus. Or I think they've added P to the end, but I got it down. But the thing is, though, LGBT groups are not the actual people. This is the political wing of that represent LGBT people. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So if he's criticizing LGBT groups, he's not criticizing the actual gays, lesbians, bisexuals, transsexuals people. He's basically seems to me that he's having a criticism of the actual political side of that. So it's like criticizing feminism does not mean criticizing women. That's basically the same idea, right? Criticizing Black Lives Matter is not the same as criticizing blacks. But it's important for these groups to conflate them so that it's difficult for you to criticize them, because then it makes you look like a bigot and you get hit pieces written about you like this. Number 12, or no, 11. I may have jumped ahead a bit. In the same blog, he used the expressions politically correct tick box mafia and politically correct feminist lesbians.
I'm sorry, but
Philip.
that isn't a reason to vote for him. I don't see why that's a reason to not vote for him at all. That's just beautiful. What a hero.
Oh, you're my hero, Philip. Seriously, keep up. That's a good soundbite, the tick box mafia.
Number 12, at a men's rights conference in August last year, he made a speech saying that Britain's legal system is skewed in favor of women.
True.
Yeah.
And true.
And told the audience that feminist zealots really do want women to have their cake and eat it too.
Also true.
Also true, yes.
Yeah.
Vote for Philip.
Number 13, Davies said that men have completely lost their voice in society in a bizarre blog post. It's bizarre. Let me look at it. So when men have lost their voice.
At it, but I mean, he's right, and not only are men's issues kind of socially taboo, but, we've got secret family courts where men are going to be put in prison if they speak about their experiences.
Yes.
Well, I actually have the context here. This is also... So the pool, and I love when journalists do this, the pool links as its source another article on the pool. So it links itself. Well, I'm going to trust this. It says here that seems to be what's going on in the head of Conservative MP Philip Davies, who today published a rather bizarre column, ostensibly about whether we should celebrate an International Men's Day, in which he alleges that political correctness has neutered men to such an extent that in many areas they have completely lost their voice. So that's the entire context of what he's saying, and that is correct. I don't see a problem with that.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Even those on the left, and this is one thing I was having a sort of discussion with someone on Twitter earlier today about. There are quite a few guys involved in the men's rights cause or sympathetic to it who realise what's going on, who are on the left. Sargon. And so, you know, a lot of them...
Yeah, but he's going to vote Tory, you know.
Well, exactly. This is what I'm trying to say. Is we've got someone who I don't know if he wants me to mention his name on here, but he funded three of the red pill screenings in the UK, and I helped him with the London one. He is on the left, and he is now a men's rights activist. And I guarantee you, if he was in Shipley, he would rather die than vote for the Women's Equality Party. So he would be forced to vote for Philip, even if he doesn't like all of Philip's policies. But he recognises that Philip is a man of common sense, and that Philip is championing some causes that he feels very strongly about. So it's like they are alienating the men on the left in Shipley. I mean, do you think the guys are going to be marching down to the ballot to vote for the Women's Equality Party after they've had the family courts take away and empower a woman to take away contact from their kids after they've been accused of sexual assault, and it's been dismissed, and they're still not allowed to mention who the accused was, and she can still claim compensation even though they've been dismissed after being targeted by the CPS. I mean, all these examples that are happening to men across the board, no matter where they are on the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. The smug and like self-righteousness of Sophie Walker and Catherine Mayer saying let us eat cake, it's the good thing, and everything will be much better if women are running the show, which is basically their message. It's really alienating, and it's disgusting, and it really, really pisses me off.